In the game Kasparov against Erevan, the world champion is fighting against the two knights. And there is no big difference between fighting with a bishop and a knight in comparison to two knights. Once again, the rook is very flexible and very nice piece to attack both the flanks, and white here is having excellent winning chances. His first move is very important. In the game, Kasparov found the correct one. This is rook b8. He needs to go for the pawn on the queen side and to try to create a pass pawn as fast as possible. Taking the pawn on h7 wouldn't be a good idea, as after knight c4, black is immediately regaining the pawn, and more importantly, he's going to trade the one on e3 as well, after which the chance that he loses the game disappears. With pawns only on one flank, there is nothing that the rook can do. So rook b8 was played. Black reacted with king e7, and after b4 he did a mistake. He went for the pawn on a3 with knight c4 check. Instead of that, a better try to defend would be knight c to d7, as suggested by Kasparov, and after rook b7, knight c4 check, king d3, knight takes a3, and rook takes a7, even though white is still much better. And after that he can play king c4 and b5, and he can once again try to combine play on both flanks. The chances for draw for black are also quite high. This would be the right way to defend, as the b passer is not as dangerous as the a passer. Now after knight c4, king e2, knight e7, rook g8 was a strong move, winning an important tempo to attack the pawn, and g5 was answered a4, a5, ba5, knight takes a5. That's precisely what Kasparov was heading for. Note that the further this pawn is from the opposite flank, the more difficult the problems are for the side with the light pieces. Rook a8 was played in the game. That was good enough for win. Kasparov later regretted about this discontinuation, and he suggested another win. Rook g7 check to take this pawn, and to continue with g3 and h4 to try and to create a passer on the side of the board as fast as possible. And then his winning line runs like that: h5, knight d8, rook c7, the key move, which is cutting the knight from the main forces. And after knight f7, rook c4, the knight is more or less trapped. It cannot go on b6 because of the check on c6. These two squares have been taken, and knight b2 is also trapping the knight with rook b4. Once again, we see the typical play on both the flanks, first on one side and then on the other, here concretely trapping the piece. But okay, rook e8 wasn't such a bad move, even though Kasparov criticized it. Knight c6 was answered e5, king d6, g3, again the same idea, preparing play on the king side. The further this pawn is advanced, the better it would be for white, because at some moment he will have to abandon the a pawn and to go for the h1 and to try to push it into queen. So that's why he's trying to push it as far as possible. Now h5 was played. Black knows what to be afraid of. h4, pawn takes, knight c5, a6, and the move that was played in the game made things even easier. King c7, instead of that, knight e6 was a better try, even though here too black is having big problems after rook h8, knight c7, rook takes h5, knight a6, rook h7. This move cuts the king away from the pawn, and next the pawn is moving forward with good chances for win for white. While the move king c7 that was played in the game ended the story rather quickly with a7. The problem for black is that king c8 is not helping. There is no move rook a8, and one of the knights on the c file would be lost. Even if he gives an in-between check, then that one would be still hanging. See, after king e3, actually king e3 is better. And if instead of king b7, black tries king b6. Then the win is quite similar, like the one in the game rook h8. He will have to take on a7, and these pieces are too far away to deal with the h-pawn. You'll probably know that the corner pawns are the most unpleasant ones for the knights, and here this is not an exception. And finally the game ended with the move knight b7, which allowed rook c8 trick, sorry, not rook d8, but rook c8, and the pawn got promoted. This is the situation in which Serevan resigned. So all in all we need to remember is that usually in the endgames a rook and a pawn are better than two light pieces. We didn't cover the cases with the bishops, but also even there, in most of the cases, a rook and a pawn versus two bishops versus two light pieces as a whole, these are favorable endgames for the side with the rook, especially if there are pass pawns.